Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, thousands turn out to opposition organised protests in South Africa to express deepening frustration over the country's power crisis. Electricity prices continue to rise as blackouts continue. Also, in a rare trial of a former president, ex-Mauritanian leader Mohamed Ould Abdelaziz appears in court on corruption charges. And Rwanda is investing more in a circular economy and is ramping up waste management. Faced with about 15,000 tonnes of e-waste dumped every year, it's focusing more resources on recycling old smartphones. But first, South Africa's ruling party, the ANC, has called for an emergency meeting to discuss the country's energy crisis after thousands of people turned out to opposition protest marches nationwide on Wednesday. Now, they're all frustrated about a massive increase in the price of electricity, even as scheduled blackouts continue. The outages help reduce strain on the electricity grid, but cost the country millions every day. Nadine Tron tells us more.
Around 3,000 people marched to the ANC's offices in Cape Town to protest the price hike in electricity prices and constant power outages. The march was planned by the opposition party, the Democratic Alliance, who lays the blame for South Africa's power crisis on the ANC. In Johannesburg, the march was much bigger. The DA filed a court application last week to have the tariff hike of 18.65% in electricity prices declared unconstitutional and irrational. The failing electricity supplier Eskom says this won't end soon, and we can expect to experience between 2 and 4 hours of planned power outages, at least for the next 2 years.
I would like to start off, first of all, by offering my sincere apology for load shedding and the huge and widespread disruption that this has caused to many parts of our economy, but also to the daily lives of all of our citizens. This is highly regrettable, and I can give the country the assurance that the Eskom team is hard at work in collaboration with the National Electricity Crisis Committee, as well as with our partners in various government departments.
Well, the government is working on new legislation to allow more independent power producers to supply Eskom with electricity. The power supply needs at least 16,000 megawatts in order to end the power outages.
The corruption trial of Mauritanian's former president opened on Wednesday. Mohamed Ould Abdelaziz appeared in court after having spent the night in custody. On Tuesday, he'd been arrested at home for refusing to report to police. Ould Abdelaziz stepped down in 2019 and, along with several figures from his regime, faces charges of graft and abuse of power. Caroline Lambolet tells us more.
It's an unprecedented trial in Mauritania. Former President Mohamed Ould Abdelaziz in court over corruption charges. After serving his 2 terms, he stepped down and handed over power in 2019, a first in a country accustomed to military coups. The start of the trial drew a crowd on Wednesday, some demanding that justice be served, and others expressing their support for the former president.
My reaction is that the trial will be unfair, that the rights of the defense will not be respected, and that it will not be a fair trial.
The trial is taking place in a very open atmosphere. Some of the speeches have been very intense, but it's the least one can expect from a trial like this. There have been several incidents on the part of our colleagues in the defense.
The night before he was due in court, Ould Abdelaziz took to Facebook to defend his record as president.
Faced with these false and misleading accusations, I will defend myself. I will defend my honor and my dignity, and beyond that, I will defend the rights of the Mauritanian people who deserve justice. I will remain standing against this destructive regime.
He was referring to the government led by Mohamed Ould Ghazouani, his former right-hand man and defense minister. He'd actually backed Ghazouani's candidacy in 2019. The former president now stands accused of illegally amassing a personal fortune worth millions of dollars during his 11 years in power, with fingers in several pots, including state contracts and real estate. He has repeatedly denied the charges. According to the lawyers, the trial could last weeks or even months.
Exultant crowds gathered in Dar es Salaam on Wednesday for a rally of the opposition Chadema party as it welcomed back leader Tundu Lissu from 5 years in exile. Tanzanian President Samia Suluhu Hassan lifted a 6-year ban on opposition rallies that was brought in by her predecessor John Magufuli. She did so just 3 weeks ago. Now, Lissu first fled for Belgium in 2017 after surviving an assassination attempt. He left again in 2020 after losing the presidential election to Magufuli. Now, he said that he is glad to be back and still has ambitions for his party.
People have suffered. We have been tortured. Innocent people have been jailed. Others have disappeared. No one knows where they are. We deserve to celebrate each other's presence. I assure you, if we all come together, we will build a very strong national movement in the next few years. I am sure we will be able to get a free, fair electoral commission and a new constitution for our country, even before the next election in 2025.
Rwanda's Football Federation has launched an investigation after fans threatened and verbally abused a female referee. Salima Mukansanga spoke of her excitement to France 24 last year when she made history as the first female ref at the Africa Cup of Nations. She was also one of just 3 women officiating at the Men's World Cup in Qatar last year. She faced a slew of insults from supporters of Kiyovu Football Club last Friday as she refereed their 0-0 draw against Kasogi United. More than 800 kilos of cocaine were seized by the Senegalese Navy off the coast of Dakar this week. Over the last few years, the number of similar seizures across the region seems to be on the rise. West Africa appears to be becoming an increasingly key transit hub for traffickers and, worryingly, offering up a growing consumer market for illegal drugs. Sam Bradpiece tells us more from Dakar.
In total, 805 kilograms of cocaine were seized on a boat off the coast of Dakar on Sunday, according to this week's statement from the Senegalese Navy, which said it was assisted by French air support. If this quantity of cocaine was resold on the streets of Europe, it could have a potential value of more than €1 billion. And this interception is just the latest sign that Senegal is becoming an increasingly important hub for cocaine trafficking in West and Central Africa. In fact, according to the UN, Senegal has only been surpassed by Cape Verde within this region for the quantity of cocaine seized by authorities from 2019 to 2022. Drug traffickers use Senegal and many other West African countries mostly as a transit point for bringing drugs from South America before sending them onwards to Europe. The record cocaine seizure in Senegal was more than 2 tons in a single incident, and that was back in 2021. While most of this cocaine is trafficked onwards to Europe, analysts say that there is also increasingly domestic consumption as well.
Now, Rwanda is investing more in a circular economy and so is ramping up its waste management projects. Faced with about 15,000 tons of e-waste dumped in landfills every year, it's now focusing more resources on recycling more smartphones. Now, that means changing both the way old devices are collected and the creation of a specialized factory that's been set up to help with the dismantling and recycling. Our team went to have a look.
In southern Rwanda, this treatment plant collects and recycles electronic waste. It is the only one of its kind in East Africa.
For example, this one, I found that there is some screw. This is
Danny disassembles dozens of smartphones every day. It's meticulous work.
The problem with the smartphone, you have to be careful. If you are not careful, if I'm damaged, it's not complicated, but you have to be careful.
15,000 tons of electronic devices are thrown away every year in the country, including valuable but reusable materials like copper, gold or coltan.
Precious metals that you can find in there are considered as raw materials. So they can be reused to manufacture other phones, so they are always valuable than just dumping them. There's, for example, batteries that has acid in it, and then it will mix with what we cultivate for food, and then later on we will eat it.
These smartphones will be refurbished and some parts resold. This plant can also extract copper from old electrical wires and even recycle batteries used for solar energy. The company says it has created 700 jobs in the country, including 50 in this village near the treatment center.
I was finally able to pay for the children's education and even buy 3 plots of land here, thanks to my salary. I'm telling you, my life has really changed.
Rwanda is moving towards a digital economy and is reducing import taxes on some devices. The shift means it's more important than ever to change the way waste is managed.
We are keeping doing the awareness so that people can at least understand the harmful contained in those gadgets so that they can bring them to the waste collection.
Only 3,000 tons of electronic waste are currently recycled. The hope is that the plant will eventually process 10,000 tons of e-waste a year.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us. Do so again. Take care.